Segilola Salami. It's the Segilola Salami Show. I'm really excited because I'm at London's first crime writing festival. It's called Capital Crime. Normally, I would record my podcast from home. But today is really nice to be sort of somewhere out, and I get to meet lots of amazing authors. One of the best, they're among the best crime authors in London. So today I'm not in a virtual cafe. I'm actually having a conversation with my guests, one-on-one in Capital Crime in central London. As normal, I would let my guests introduce themselves because I think they can do a better job at it than I can. So who have I got here with me today?
You've got Deborah O'Donoghue. I'm the author of Sea of Bones, which is a simmering psychological thriller set between London and Scotland and Wales and Manchester and Liverpool. And I'm a former teacher turned writer.
Awesome. Your books sound amazing already, like psychological. I'm just sort of, what is it like? Would you say it's like 007, or would it be more, I'm thinking of Elementary now. What's that guy's name? The detective. Is that a detective type one, or what is?
It's not a detective, so it's not a police procedural as such,
Okay.
although there is a murder detective in the novel. But it's about a politician, a woman who works behind the scenes. She's a chief of staff for the Progressive Alliance, and she finds herself with a lot of time on her hands after a massive failure in the elections, and she starts looking into her niece's death. So obviously, because it's a thriller, she starts to uncover that it's not all as it seems. And she goes up to Scotland to her family home on the coast, and she's grieving, and her twin sister is bipolar. So she has some paranoia that she may be sharing some of the diagnoses with her sister, because there is some research that shows there's an increased risk of bipolar if your twin is bipolar. So
Interesting.
So it explores some of those psychological issues, and she doesn't know whether her doubts and the things that she's finding out are true or part of her own psychological state at that time.
Your book sounds amazing. So now, normally, because the show is set in a virtual cafe, people would have virtual drinks just because it's just sort of something nice to do. So because we're here and we're not recording virtually, just let people know a bit more about you. What is your favorite? If you went to Starbucks, what would you normally order?
I would order a double macchiato, a double espresso macchiato, because I like just that little bit of froth on the top of the strong coffee just to take the edge off it a little bit.
Nice. Okay, so just sort of kind of, I know you've said so much about your book and your book sounds amazing, but I like to know a little bit more about the people that I chat with. So what was it? How did your life get the way it was so that you ended up here on a seat next to me?
Well, obviously I became a teacher after my studies, and I had a wonderful teaching career. I loved it. I loved being in the classroom. And then I went and worked for the local authority as a consultant teacher for a number of years. And of course, in the current climate, the local authorities are shrinking, and I took the opportunity to take voluntary redundancy. And I thought, do you know what? I need to put this little pot of money where my mouth is, and pay for myself to have some time to write, which is what I'd always wanted to do. It's what I've always done. I have written since I was a little girl, but to have some time to take it seriously and find out more about the industry and give myself that chance.
Awesome. So local authority, then you became redundant, then you started. So did you self-publish, or did you go with a trade publisher?
I've been published by Legend Press, which are an incredible independent press set up by Tom Chalmers, who's won all sorts of awards in the industry. They have an amazing list, and I was really lucky to be taken on by them, be acquired by them, and join their stable, so to speak. I really recommend people go and have a look at their website because they're doing incredible things. When I started looking into, writing, I got some coaching from a former colleague who became a life coach.
Right.
And it was really interesting because she was able to help me set goals and identify some of my strengths and areas for development. And one of my areas for development was networking, because I, like lots of Englishy, bookish type people, I'm naturally, people will laugh, my friends would laugh if I said I'm naturally shy, because I'm not. Obviously I've been a performer and things like that. But you change as you grow older, and I had become a little bit more reserved, and the idea of networking and asking for help just made me cringe. And I realised that you have to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable.
Yes.
And actually people are a lot kinder than you think they are. I asked a friend of a friend called Rosie Walsh, who has had a massive success recently with the New York Times bestseller,
Nice.
The Man Who Didn't Call, whether she would Skype with me occasionally, give me some advice, and she has been absolute gold dust. We met up every couple of weeks virtually, because I live in Brussels, and she gave me advice. She let me read her drafts. She shared with me her nous about how to try and get an agent, and also to navigate what I wanted to write, with also being a little bit commercial and giving yourself the chance of making a living as a writer as well. So that was amazing, and so that's how I kind of went from local authority employee to being more of an independent self-starter, if you like.
It sounds really amazing. So you then got a coach, and did you say her name was Rosie Walsh?
No, so Rosie is my, I would say, writing buddy.
Okay.
And she's amazing. My coach was a lady called Alison Rendell, who, as I say, used to work with me, and she's incredible. She doesn't give you the answers. She knows that the answers are inside you, but she asks you the questions that draw out what goals you need to set for yourself, from the long term, the bigger goals, to the smaller day-to-day. So for example, I was worried that, having been a teacher with a timetable, where my day was so tightly divided up and I didn't have any space to think even, going into being self-employed, being much more flexible, having all that time on my hands, I was worried that I may not use it as efficiently as I could have done. So we talked through some of those concerns that I had, and how to mitigate and manage those concerns and make sure that I was productive.
Awesome. So what was the first networking event you went to?
I went to the Winchester Writers Festival, which I really recommend. It was an incredible opportunity. You pay your money to go to the festival, and you get a number of one-to-one slots with your choice of writers, editors, agents. And so in advance of the festival, you pitch your material that you've got to them in whatever format they want. So maybe it's the first 10,000 words, or the first 3 chapters plus a synopsis. And they feed back to you one-to-one at the festival. It was absolutely incredible, because obviously they don't all say exactly the same thing. So you can navigate their feedback and pick out the common threads, and realise what you need to do. But also it gives you the chance to possibly get an agent at the festival if they like what you're doing. They may want to keep in touch with you, see how your writing develops and so on. And it gives you huge confidence, because having met 4 people on the trot and risked them, tearing you apart and potentially, you grow a thick skin, and it gives you confidence to then go out into the wider world and approach other people.
That sounds really amazing, though, because I know that, as an author myself, and having spoken to hundreds of other authors, one of the biggest things that sometimes when someone is starting to, like, okay, I want to become a published author, their biggest struggle is, do I self-publish or do I go with an agent, or, and they're not really sure how to navigate. And then sort of listening to you say that, a writers festival, well, I guess if it's the right one, they would put you in touch with, agents that you can pitch your work to. No, that sounds really amazing.
It was really helpful, yeah. I mean, the whole self-publishing versus getting an agent going down a more traditional route was something that I thought about a lot. But personally, I wanted to be able to focus on writing. I mean,
Yes.
Obviously, we all, from, Margaret Atwood down to the newest writer on the blog, we all have to do a certain amount of self-promotion and put ourselves
Yes.
out there. It's not realistic to think that you're not going to have to do that.
Yeah.
But, thinking about contractual obligations, trying to perhaps sell your book into other markets abroad, dealing with legal side of things. I just thought I really would value somebody who's expert in that and knows what they're doing. I thought that was money worth paying. If I could find somebody to take me on their list, it would be really invaluable to me. I really admire people who self-publish, and of course the industry is changing very quickly. There's lots of disruptive things going on. It's now easier than ever to market your book yourself because of wonderful book bloggers and podcasters like yourself. So I think that's there's lots of exciting change and opportunities in the profession.
It was only yesterday I was saying to someone that, this century, this year is probably one of the best years in human history, because where you would have a lot of stumbling blocks to achieve certain things, technology has allowed you to be able to achieve so much more.
Absolutely.
So we're now, a lot of people are opting to self-publish, and one of the biggest things that people have said to me was that because you're going to, even when you're with a normal trade publisher, you're still expected to do some promo. So people then say to me, well, if I have to do some promo anyway, I might as well just do everything.
Yeah, quite, and that's a perfectly logical thought process.
So, you've done, so how many books have you published now?
This is my first, so I'm working on the difficult second novel right now, and it's also a thriller. It's set in the southeast of the UK.
Okay.
So an area that I know well. I grew up on the south coast, and I lived in East Sussex for a long time. It's, when I say the difficult second novel, it's because you try and apply all the lessons that you learned in your first book and get it right in the second book. And of course, that's an impossible task. You can't apply them all at once.
No.
And that can be a little bit paralyzing. So you have to try and, I think, keep writing and keep reading other people's stuff to inspire you. That's really important. Try to dial down the internal editor voice a little bit, because also when you've just published a book, you've just had a book out, you've gone through a very intense editorial phase, and moving back out of that editorial mode into a much more experimental, creative mode can be quite a tricky transition. So try to dial down the editorial voice and just write, because of course you can come back to it later and edit, which you must do. But if the editorial voice is too loud, you'll never write another sentence again. You'll delete everything that you put down on paper. Yeah.
So I'm curious, your second book that you're writing, is that going to be a sequel to your first book?
It's not a sequel. I have got a sequel planned, so if there's any publishers out there who are interested in acquiring that, I would be very interested to talk to them. But it's it's nice for me to have the chance to continue to grow as a writer and evolve, and write something a bit different to the first one in terms of the characters and the setting and so on. I'm kind of. Obviously, I wouldn't turn it down if somebody came along and said, "Would you write a sequel?" And I've been told the characters are very, emotionally engaging, and people want to know what's going to happen next after Sea of Bones.
Yes.
But at the moment, the sequel is just on the back burner for a little while.
Okay. So what was going through your mind? So I always think, right, and I'm looking at it from the way I think of books, right? And I don't like saying this all the time, but though I've said this several times on my podcast anyway, but no one holds it against me, right? I think of writers like me as crazy people. I think that when you're writing fiction, you sound really mental, because for me, the characters are talking to me, and it's like I'm sitting somewhere, and then I'm literally doing something not related to writing, and literally I can, in my mind, in my head, the characters have had a conversation with themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I'm literally, so it's literally, okay, it's played out in my head. I need to find a computer to write that story that they've told me. So the characters write themselves.
Yes. That's absolutely the case. And I mean, you get to know your characters. As you know, when you start out, you're still feeling your way with them. And I used to go to literary festivals and hear writers speak about this. And I used to think, what a load of old cobblers. Don't be ridiculous. You're the author, you're the creator. They're coming from you.
Yes.
They're not, there's the famous example of J.K. Rowling saying that the cast of Harry Potter walked into her head on a train journey. But as I've had the opportunity to, I used to write a lot of short stories when I was teaching, because you had time to write a short piece and get it finished, and you didn't have time to invest, well, I found, in a longer endeavour. So I found writing a full-length novel that the characters did evolve, and I got to know them as friends, and I could start to hear as you say, my thing is it's when I'm in bed at night, and it's been like that ever since I was a little girl. I sort of tell myself stories, and I can picture scenes. I hear a key thing that a character might say to another character.
Yeah.
Yes, that connects with that they said earlier. And it's like, it's not me planning it. It's like I see the connections afterwards.
Yeah.
Obviously I did have a plan for this novel as well, but so many of the things that people have said they enjoyed came from sort of serendipity, and almost like on a subconscious level, there are themes and ideas running through the book that you don't see yourself as a creator in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's good. But you've now said something that you planned. So again, I'm on Goodreads, right? And again, it's like I've had loads of different companies, and this is like a debate where it's like we're in the motion that we should plan our stories, or we're in the motion that we should just go with the flow. So are you in the bandwagon of planning?
I veer between the two. I went to a festival a few years ago, and it was fascinating. It was moderator with the discussion. Two authors did their readings, and then they were asked the question, how do you plan? How do you write? And the first the first author said, I write all the scenes on different shaped and coloured bits of paper to almost like a flow chart. So if it's a certain type of scene, it'll be on a certain type of bit of paper, and I plan it out, and I move the pieces of paper around, and I make a shape with them on the floor or the desk so that I can see the shape of them, and then I write. And while she was talking, the other author there started to look more and more horrified and nervous, and he said, I just follow my nose. I literally follow my nose and allow the story to reveal itself to me as I go along. And I think I fall somewhere in between those two camps. So I have a post-it note chart, which is something that Rosie Walsh told me to do, and the different threads of the story are in different coloured post-it notes. But you can, with the best will in the world, you can plan that out and the plot events out, and then realise that the transition between this point and this point is really awkward and doesn't work, and you need to do something to get the character either mentally or emotionally or geographically from one place to another that you hadn't predicted. Perhaps I'm just really dim and I don't predict these things in advance. But I do that. But I think if you knew every single element in advance, it would actually be, for me, I would find that a bit dull. I love the spontaneity of being able to make connections and decide to do things in a different way and experiment as I go along and see what I feel is working. Also, I give it to readers as I have, trusted beta readers who tell me what they think is working, and I pick my way through that feedback to find my own voice.
Yes, because I find beta readers, they're like the most amazing people on this planet, because I always think of my head like spaghetti, right? And it's all mashed up together. So it's like I've taken that spaghetti and dished it out on a plate, and it probably doesn't make sense. To me, it makes sense. But to someone, it doesn't make sense because it's all just sort of tangled. And then my lovely beta readers, they then spread it out. And I was like, that makes so much sense now. I'm actually articulating what was in my head, whereas before I wasn't articulating. It's like it's all there mixed up. I know what I'm saying, and I think everyone should see it. And then they've helped me to sort of spread it out.
Untangle it, absolutely. Yeah, they were invaluable to me during the process. I'm really grateful to all of those people.
How did you find your beta readers? Where did you find them?
I asked trusted friends who I knew were readers, or whom I knew had particular expert knowledge in certain aspects of the novel, and they were all incredibly generous with their time and read the first draft. Told me what they felt worked, the bits that they'd found most engaging, things that they didn't think were plausible or didn't make sense. And sometimes that's quite hard to hear because you can be really wedded to an idea. But it's really important to do, because if you're not prepared to put your writing out in front of people who you trust and who are close to you, it's gonna, maybe that's more difficult than putting it out to a complete stranger. I don't know, but I think you have to be prepared to put your writing out into the world and get some feedback.
Yeah, just don't be like me. Do everyone in my network, like my friends and family, people that I know personally, they always seem to say, "Oh, that's amazing." I give it to myself, like, "Can you give me constructive?" "Oh, wow, did my sister just write this? That's so amazing." And literally, that's all I get. So
yeah, they absolutely. There's a risk that they don't want to hurt your feelings, but I was completely adamant and clear with them that I wanted honest feedback and that I could take it, that the point for me was to get constructive criticism and to improve, and I needed to know. So I gave them kind of, I want to know this, does this work? Particular readers, I said, I asked them about areas that they were expert in. Other readers, it was more how does it compare to other published novels that are in the same genre in your mind? And they were amazing. It's so generous with their time.
Yes.
I don't know whether I need to find a different group for the next one because I can't keep burning the time of the same people. But
chocolate works.
Yeah, that's true. Lots of gifts.
Yes, chocolate works.
Especially Belgian chocolate. Living in Brussels is a big bonus from that point of view.
Actually, I was going to ask you. So, did you come from Brussels to London just for this festival?
I actually had I was able to make it all coincide, which was great. I went and looked after my niece and nephew for a few days, so my sister and her husband were able to go away.
Awesome.
That's lovely. It means I get some nice auntie time with them. And I then did a small event in East Sussex. In a village hall down there where a reading group invited me down, and that was great. They were a great crowd, really friendly. It was nice to see some friendly faces. People I knew from East Sussex as well came along, so I was able to catch up with them. And then obviously here for from 26th to 28th of September at Capital Crime.
Awesome. So the book club, how did they find you?
It was actually the book club of Alison, the coach that I mentioned, and she read the book and obviously wanted to support me, I think, and was really excited as well about what was happening. And so she invited other book clubs from the area. So it wasn't just her book club. But I also put out on social media a couple of months ago an opportunity I wanted to join some book clubs if they read my book, because that's another amazing learning opportunity to hear their genuine reactions. So I've done that as well. There are 3 book clubs that I'm due to join, and I've done one of them in London a couple of weeks back. Met a group of ladies who'd read the book, and they gave me amazingly useful comments and feedback. It was a really nice evening. People were like, really? You're going to go and join these people whom you've never met? It was a bit weird for all of us, I think, at first. But, we all got along famously. What we have in common is that we love reading, all of us. Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's coming to that time, where normally I would say to people, I'm going to have to kick you out of the virtual cafe, but we're actually sitting next to each other, so I can't really kick you out. But just to summarize though, so you've shared with us how you've gone from being a teacher to a local authority employee to then having, working, as full-time author. So can you just sort of summarize 5 tips if anyone is looking to do that transition from whatever career they have to becoming a full-time author? 5 tips on how they can do it.
Absolutely. I would consider getting a coach or somebody whom you trust to help you do some goal setting and keep you on track.
Okay.
I would try and connect and network with people, put yourself out there, ask the questions, ask for help, because people do respond positively and are really generous. Obviously, you've got to write, you've got to keep writing,
yes.
And you've got to read as much as you can to understand how your book fits into the marketplace. And I would recommend going to a writers' festival, like I mentioned, the Winchester Writers' Festival, somewhere where you can pick people's brains about the industry, because it's such a sort of sacral, closed industry in some respects. There's all sorts of, the Writers and Artists Handbook, the guides, but at the end of the day, people feel that it's quite opaque. So actually just going and asking the questions at events like that can be a real eye-opener.
Awesome. Okay, so final one. If someone's listening to the show and they're like, oh my God, Deborah sounds really amazing, I want to find out more about what she does, where can they find out more about you? Where can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on Twitter. I'm the Deborah O'Donoghue on Twitter, on Instagram. I'd love to connect with people and hear about what they're doing and what they've thought about my book, if they've read it. It's out there in bookshops and available on, online, A Sea of Bones. And get in touch. I'd love to hear from people. Awesome.
But you don't have a website?
I don't have a website at the moment. I used to, but I found it was when I was at the local authority. I created a writer's website, and I couldn't do enough of my own writing as well as running the website for other people. So I put that on the back burner as well for the moment.
So will you be creating, your own website sometime? Just that shows, that's sort of like your own online home with all your work and all your books.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of forums that do that job for you. So Twitter, Instagram, and so on. You can promote yourself and your ideas and so on those places. But I'm having a look at the idea of a website again, because I would really like to share some of my experiences, maybe blog a little bit and so on. And it's another place to connect with people.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you, Deborah. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're listening to this, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. All the links, and I will put Deborah's Twitter handle in the show notes. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please do leave a comment or a review wherever you do listen to it. And until next time, it is the Segilola Salami Show. Bye now.
Bye.